connected to audio.
Hey man, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, we're
Sorry,
good.
I'm calling from a hotel room here. So
Oh yeah,
my
you were.
computer decided to update like right when I walked in the room.
Oh no, you were a busy guy, and it seems to get busier every year with the success that you guys are having. So,
Good to be busy.
right? All right, we are just getting everything set up, sending the last minute tweets and shares and crud, and then Michael get us started.
Nice.
That one. Come on. All right, ready, Mike? 3, 2, you.
All right, it's Tuesday night, and we're back with another edition of Global Horns and Fight Songs. This one's a little different, even though it's right before playoffs. We kind of touched on that last week, but we have another special guest, a returning special guest, and so I'm gonna pass it to Wes for the introduction.
Yeah, joining us this time is Athletic Director for Western Michigan, Dan Bartholomae, who's been rather successful in his tenure here at Western Michigan, earning championships, whether regular season or conference champions in sports, including but not limited to, because there's a whole list of them, baseball, gymnastics, volleyball, men's and women's soccer, and most recently capturing the first conference regular season title in program history in hockey this last week or 2 weeks ago. For the Broncos. But thanks again for joining us. You're a very busy dude. I think you got like 3 tournaments starting this weekend. 2 of them happen to be in Cleveland, and then the Broncos have home ice for the NCHC tournament. So thanks for making
guys.
time for us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. And postseason sports, man, there's nothing better. And so it is always good to be in the postseason because, as you guys know, not everybody qualifies for that. And our Broncos are doing great, continuing the great success from the fall here into the winter sports, and excited for some basketball and hockey.
Yeah, I think last time you were on the show, there was a little bit of a changeover going on, at least in the football program. And since then, the football program's been doing pretty good. And you mentioned that you were a manager of managers, and it seems like you've found the right guys, some that you've inherited from previous AD, Catherine Beauregard, others you've brought in. But how are the coaches? Do they interact a lot with each other? And do you think the winning's infectious amongst all the programs? Because it certainly seems like it is.
I do. Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And the belief is a huge part of our culture, right? And I go back to my very first staff meeting. It was in February of 2022, and I stood up in front of this group of people who I really hadn't met yet, and put this vision on the board, a vision that we had started talking about with a lot of people who were really invested in Western Michigan athletics, including some of our coaches. And I told them, like, the first step to all of this, guys, is you got to believe. In fact, we put a hashtag believe. I said, I know I stole it from Ted Lasso. I don't care. But we're not going to achieve any of these things if you don't start with belief. And really, to your point, Wes, it was a lot of the coaches that I inherited that jumped onto that message right away. The Colleen Munsons, the Chad Wisemans, right? The Penny Jernigans, the Dave Marins, the sort of the leaders of that group. And so as we brought new coaches in, you sort of had this group that supported each other, understood what the vision was. I mean, I think one of the important things we did early on is we set what the expectation was going to be, and we set the vision, and we talked about how we were going to get there. It wasn't just going to be words on a board, right? We were going to talk about how we were going to resource our programs differently, how we were going to support our programs differently administratively. And as I said, you got coaches that jumped on board, believed from day one. And then, to your first question about do they interact with each other, they do. I'm really fortunate. Like, I have a group of coaches that in some ways manage themselves, right? Like, I'm here to manage them. I'm the boss. My job really is to resource them to be successful. But, outside of my office, they're encouraging each other. They're working together. I've got a coaches leadership group that I work with. And then we meet as a head coaches group once a month. And, sometimes it's a strict agenda. Sometimes it's just, hey, what items do you guys want to talk about today? And it's a really fun group to be a part of. It's been really cool.
I think that's sorry, Wes, but I think that's a huge deal because you'll hear in a lot of programs, the coaches, yeah, we support this team, we're cheering for the basketball team or the softball team or whatever the team is, and if they're not really interacting with each other, then they're just saying it for PR because they have to say it. But when the coaches interact, it does make a huge deal. I know here at Minnesota, um, DJ Fleck and Bob Motzko and Ben Johnson, they're interacting. Michigan State back when Kirk Cousins was playing, like Mike D'Antonio, or I can't remember his name. Him and Tom Izzo were like best friends, and they would go support each other. I think that's huge to have successful programs.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned Tom Izzo, right? And right now I'm here in Cleveland. Just had dinner with our men's basketball program, and we hired Dwayne Stevens to come in. This is the first time that our men's basketball program has qualified for the quarterfinals in Cleveland back to back since 2014-15, right? And that's a decade. That's a long time where you're not making it to the postseason. And Dwayne's a big part of that. But you talk about that culture of supporting each other. And that was something we also talked about, like, hey, I want you to go to each other's games. And we actually incentivize our athletes. They want to do it anyways, but we have some fun with it. We compete to see who's going to the most of their peers' games. But DJ was learning from Tom Izzo, has been a great example of that. I mean, that's a guy who comes with his staff. He's at almost every soccer game, right? He's at every volleyball game, every women's basketball game. And I go back to one of, I really think the turning point moments for our department was 2 years ago, volleyball. My first year of volleyball probably underachieved a little bit. I think Colleen would be the first to tell you that. And we really set a high goal for ourselves that next year to win a championship. And they went out and they swept the MAC, had an unbelievable season in the MAC. And that gave us the opportunity to host the tournament. And when you're in the MAC, fortunately or unfortunately, the winner of the tournament's going to the NCAAs, and most times, if you don't win it, you're not going. You can have the greatest regular season in the world. If you don't win it, you're not going. So we needed everybody in that moment, and we play Bowling Green. It's tied 2-2, and all of our athletes are there, right? And I'm talking like women's soccer is behind the serving line, talking smack to Bowling Green, and our entire football program gets dialed in during this fifth set, right? It's down to do or die set, and our football program starts making all this noise, chanting, and it was the turning point in the match. I mean, we go out, we win the fifth set, clinch the championship. All of our athletes run out onto the court to celebrate together. I mean, it's a picture that is will be framed in my mind for the rest of my career, and it goes back to a number of things, right? Belief, setting a vision, saying we're going to go win a championship, belief, and then having the support from your peers to get it done.
Yeah, no, I watched that game on ESPN Plus because trying to slowly introduce Reagan to things. I mean, she just turned 2, but we're slowly getting her introduced to sports and what's available to her as she gets older. And yeah, it was so much fun watching and just seeing like the crowd kind of get bigger as the game went on, and then hearing it was almost hard to hear the announcers because of how loud like everybody was pulling for the Broncos there. But we're in this period of evolution amongst college sports. NIL has become a bigger and bigger thing the last few years. It's not just straight directed towards one sport. In fact, they're tying it into almost every sport now with the new opt-in thing. I think you don't have to opt in directly for this next fall, but it does. If you do, it affects all your sports. It's not just for football or basketball, whatever the biggest sport on campus may be. So how do you balance? Is that something that you're in charge of, whether we opt in or not? And how do you look at that in balance to make the right decision for all of your student athletes? Because it is something that will impact all of them.
Yeah, great question. And obviously, to your point, very volatile and polarizing time in college athletics, especially for long-time traditional fans. In a period of, I can't think of an industry. I'm sure there's another one, but I'm biased, I guess. I can't think of another industry that has undergone the amount of change in such a short period of time than Division I athletics. So to your question on the opt-in piece, right? We moved into the NIL space, and I think one of the challenges with NIL was it was all being run third party, right? We had very little control, which is different than all the other services that we provide to our athletes, right? I mean, I remember when this whole NIL thing first became a thing, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we can't help our athletes get deals, we can't facilitate any deals, we can't participate in any deals, but like we help them get tutors, right? Like we help them with academic support, life skills, career development. Like if this is going to be an integral part of who we are, to put us on the sidelines, I mean, arguably we're the group that cares about them the most, right? And so now we're moving into a world, hopefully, there's a settlement that'll have to be approved here in April that'll allow us to move a lot of those functions in-house. And I've been a proponent of that from day one. It does mean our industry is going to change, right? And the way that I explain that to people is we can choose not to be a part of it. Like we can choose to say, well, we're better than that, and that's not who we are, and we don't pay athletes, and that's not us. But that's what Kodak was saying about digital cameras, right? Like that's what Blockbuster was saying about streaming video, and we don't want to be them, right? And so to answer your question, yeah, we are opting in. Of course, that's something that I had support from the president on, and all the way up to the board of trustees. And we've got a pretty careful plan that we're working through. We've got some outside support from a group called Huron Consulting, who's doing a lot of work, particularly in the group of 5. And so we're putting a plan together to play in that space. And as I mentioned, I think one of the real advantages for us is we're going to be able to bring this in-house. And so we're going to be able to make those decisions in-house. We're going to be able to explain why we make those decisions, and we're going to fund those decisions, right? So I'm in charge of that funding, and now I can start allocating or reallocating resources for us to be competitive. To your point, Wes, right? It's not going to be the same for everybody, and we talk openly about that. We've got that culture amongst our coaches. One of the benefits that I would say is, we're not a Power 4 school. We're not chasing the 20 and a half to 21 million that these Power 4 schools are chasing. That's 2/3 of our budget, right? So that's an impossibility. And frankly, it's an impossibility for the group of 5 and those that we're competing against. But we're going to play in the space, right? And so I'm not going to have to cut back on what we're already doing for some of these other programs. And that's kind of what we just explained to our coaches. Some of you will move forward in this space, but nobody's going to move backwards right now, right? And so our plan moving forward, the House settlement will allow us to provide additional financial benefits to certain sports. Frankly, we're going to prioritize sports that generate revenue and sports where we feel like we're going to need to do that to stay competitive within our market, right? If our competition's doing it, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it at a level that's going to allow us to be competitive. But the other thing the House settlement is going to allow for is additional scholarships. Your scholarships are now going to be able to go up to your roster numbers, and so that gives us some opportunity on the women's side in particular to fund them a little bit differently in the volleyballs and some of the sports where we're nationally competitive, to allow us to keep up and hopefully stay ahead. Our goal is going to be to stay ahead of the MAC, stay ahead of the NCHC, and then of course adapt to the changing world around us.
Yeah, and Western's kind of in a unique spot. I mean, you're spread out. The majority of the athletic programs operate in the MAC, but men's soccer recently got moved to the Missouri Valley Conference. Hockey is in the NCHC. So I think you're competing both amongst the other schools that you have, but you also have to look at schools like Colorado. They're only Division I in hockey. North Dakota, but I think they're only Division I in hockey. So they may be able to.
No, they're Division I in everything except football. They're in the FCS.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But they look
at
it.
Well, yeah, the Colorado College and the St. Clouds, right? They're the NCHC programs. They're all over the place, and again, that in a way that I feel like it gives us an advantage, right? Like they're having to make decisions that are so segmented, and they've got tough decisions to make too. We're really focused on, okay, all of our sports are in FBS, right? We're a Division 1A program, so we're going to opt in. We're going to opt in for all of our sports, and then we can decide based on our positioning, right? Missouri Valley, NCHC, MAC, based on the market within those sports, within our positioning, kind of how to invest moving forward.
And I think that kind of brings up an interesting question too with how other schools would do it, because you are in a position where you're like I'm trying to think. Miami is
Miami, Ohio, Bowling Green would be another one, right?
Like, so you're there, but UMD, St. Cloud, Bemidji State, they're all Division I for hockey. Granted, some different conferences, but then they're NSIC Division II all across. How is that going to affect it? Colorado College, like you said, they're Division III in everything except for Division I. How does that affect those programs and how they're going to do it? I think that's going to be a little bit more challenging in the sense, because how do you distribute amongst the divisions and what you can and can't do, because Division 2 you can have a lesser number of scholarships, and then Division 3 you don't get any.
Right.
And so that'll be interesting how that works for those schools.
Yeah, and it's a weird space for all of us because, again, if you're in the Power Four, you know what you're doing, right? You're doing $20.5 million because that's what everybody's going to have to do, and you're going to figure out how to prioritize the sports you want to prioritize. Where we are right now is I don't know what Bowling Green's doing, right? I know they're not going to do 20.5 million like us because they're in a similar financial position, but what are they going to do? And so how do we ensure that we're going to remain competitive, in the sports in which we compete against them? It's an interesting space. And to your point, it's going to bring challenges, unique challenges for all the different divisions, unique challenges for all of us that live within this ecosystem, but one that, as I said, we really started talking about right away. We don't shy away from tough conversations at Western. I brought this information to our coaches from day one and said, hey, this is how we're going to attack this together. And we continue to have those transparent conversations. And again, for us, I want to keep winning the NCHC. Like that's real simple. I want to win in football, right? And I want to win. One of our goals coming in here when I got here 3 years ago was comprehensive excellence. Like I believed we could win in everything, and we've been able to show in the last couple of years that we can. And we want to keep doing that. And so that means different things for different sports in terms of what we prioritize and who's doing revenue sharing and what we're going to focus on facilities because that's more important. Those are the kind of decisions that we're making right now heading into next year.
Yeah, and speaking of facilities, I mean, Western's getting ready to move a lot of their sports to a new downtown area right in the middle of Kalamazoo. But there's also a piece where you guys are competing for space with the local pro team, the Kalamazoo Wings. Do you guys have an idea of how that's supposed to look? Because I know the K-Wings do a lot of stuff throughout the season. They have their colored ice games throughout the year, their special events and stuff like that. So is that something you guys are looking at and figuring out how to best make use of that space for all four teams that are going there?
Yeah, we are. And in fact, we've got a whole team of all the various stakeholders. We meet for 2 years now. We've met about twice a month, and some of these meetings go 8 hours. I mean, these are design meetings. And so for one, we've got a great partnership, right? We've got a great partnership. But I will tell you at the start of all of those meetings, the developer shares his vision for the project. And it's his mission and his vision, and he shares it at the beginning of every meeting. And when he says it, he says, this is a 1 in 100 year opportunity for the city of Kalamazoo, and we're building the finest athletic performance and event center where Western Michigan, being built for Western Michigan, for its students, for its student athletes, and for its staff. So the K-Wings are going to be a partner in this for sure. Western is going to be the primary tenant, and I'll give you some examples of how the inner workings are going to work in our favor. One of the things that for me was non-negotiable was if we were going to compete in this space, and it's downtown, it's 3/4 of a mile from Waldo Stadium is where the site is. We needed to be able to train there, right? Like going back and forth didn't make sense. So really, the project has really become more of an athletic performance center for Western than an arena. It's still going to be the greatest arena with the greatest fan amenities, I think, in the country. But we've got 3 stories of dedicated space to Western, right? We won't even see the K-Wings. Not that we would mind seeing them, but this is dedicated space for us where hockey's going to have its own coaches' offices, training rooms, locker rooms. We've got an element of our strength and conditioning facility where you can close the door and we can simulate high altitude conditions for when we go to Denver and Colorado College. We've got float tanks. We got cryotherapy chambers. We've got a chef and a nutrition and cafeteria. And then we've got 2 basketball practice courts for our basketball program. Right now, one thing not a lot of people know, University Arena has 1 court, right? Not 2. A lot of times you push the bleachers back, you get 2. Not us. We've got rubber underneath those bleachers. We have 1 court, and I've got 9 programs fighting for that space on any given day. So now basketball is going to have its own level of this training center that's going to have 2 courts, and then all of these other amenities that I mentioned as well. So this is a space that is going to set Western Michigan apart, not just from the MAC and from the NCHC, but from the rest of the country. And it's kind of where I go back to what I said about revenue sharing and NIL, right? Is we can choose to continue doing what we're doing right now. And that would be okay. And that would make everybody comfortable. And there's a lot of benefits to Lawson Arena and University Arena, but we are falling behind in that space, right? And when you're falling behind in college athletics, when you're staying the same, you're falling behind. When you're falling behind, you're really falling behind. And so this facility, again, being built for Western, is really going to change the game for both Coach Ferschweiler, Coach Stevens, and Coach Klickfeld. And it's a big time moment for Kalamazoo and Western Michigan.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we mentioned in our first conversation, was just comparing it to, the North Dakotas, the Denvers, now coming in St. Thomas, who's also getting a brand new arena. Colorado College just got a brand new arena. Arizona State's arena is not very old, and they were also, they had some help in their arena when the NHL team was there. So, I mean, there's definitely some buildings in the conference that you have to compete with. And then you've got Michigan in the state, Michigan State close by. Like, there's a lot of competition for both within the state of Michigan and within our own conference to try and get the top players, and Western seems to be doing so, even if it's in the portal. And what Coach Ferschweiler has done in the portal has been absolutely phenomenal the last couple of years.
And I think one of the questions that I have is, how do you balance the detractors from a new arena versus the people that want a new arena? Now, yes, it helps that you are having successful programs that are going to be getting this new arena with what the hockey team has done, and now your basketball team is progressing. In Minnesota, we're dealing it with Williams Arena. That thing's over 100 years old, it seems, and even if the basketball program were to do well for whatever reason, it'd still be tough to get people there because it is so old. And a lot of people are, oh, it's the charm, we have to keep it around. I understand that there's a nostalgia factor, but at a certain point you just have to tear it down. And so I know you're dealing with that with Lawson versus the new arena, and how you manage those comments or those people trying to fight to keep Lawson potentially.
Yeah, there are skeptics, right? And to your point, it happens in Minnesota and it happens everywhere. Anytime you change something that people are invested in and is really important to them, there's going to be skeptics. And honestly, there should be skeptics, right? Lawson Arena is an unbelievable environment. It is awesome. On 17 days a year, it's amazing. On the rest of the days of the year, it's not so much. I think our athletes would tell you it's not the training environment that they believe is gonna put them at their best, right? And so how do we manage that dynamic? Well, for one, to your point, the overwhelming majority are very excited about this arena. The others that have questions, what we're trying to do is get out in front of them and answer them, right? And so I can't begin to tell you how many times, and I was just the night before, the night we clinched the Penrose against North Dakota, we hosted a corporate engagement event in the President's Box at Waldo Stadium, and I literally did a walk around of the arena. I took all the exteriors and I said, okay, we're at the site and I'm going to walk you around and I'm going to show you, like, hey, that's the entry to the strength and conditioning facility where we can simulate high altitude training, right? That's the entry to the virtual and augmented reality studio where we can practice free throws in front of a simulated crowd. That's the special entry that we actually designed with the Lawson Lunatics, where they'll wait to come into the building and claim their seats. And oh, by the way, they're going to stay right at center ice like they are right now. And then I have people saying, like, oh, well, I thought, it was going to be, blue and red like the K-Wings. And I didn't, now I see the Bronco thing, the Bronco logo on the side of the facility. I didn't know that it was going to be branded Western Michigan. Man, I had some doubts about this, but now that I've seen it, this is really exciting. And so what we're working on from a communication standpoint over the next 2 years is we've got to continuously get that message out about how great this is going to be for our athletes, how great it's going to be for the community, and what a difference maker it's going to be for our programs. It's not about, pointing out the, what's not great about University Arena or about Lawson Arena. It's about talking about a transformative opportunity that is going to move us forward, all of us forward, in a really productive way. And I do feel like, again, once we get in front of people and actually show them what it is instead of what they've kind of put in their own minds, we kind of get a different story. Now, listen, you talk about the nostalgia, you talk about the awesome, fun factor of Lawson Arena. It's my job to make sure that is even better in this new arena. And I promise you, I'm thinking about it every single day. And we're looking forward to fall 27 when that thing opens. It is going to, as I said, it's going to be a landmark moment for Western and for Kalamazoo.
Yeah, I mean, my fandom started at Lawson, so it's definitely going to be bittersweet to see that place go. But honestly, this year, the fact that Western was able to claim the Penrose at Lawson Ice Arena before moving downtown, like, makes it a little bit easier, I think, to say goodbye to that arena, because they haven't had that moment. We've seen other teams capture the Penrose on our ice. They've seen, struggling seasons to even win a couple games in that building. And so to get that opportunity before moving downtown, I think is kind of something that will at least allow a few other people to let go of the arena, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Wes. And that was a message that I shared with that group. Obviously, we hadn't clinched the Penrose yet. I was pretty confident we would do it that night. And I said, this is our moment, right? Kalamazoo, this is our moment. And how many programs do something like this and then 10 years down the road look back and say, man, why didn't we capitalize on that? Right? Like it happened and then it went away. And we're not going to say that, right? This is our moment. We are going to win the Penrose tonight. Okay. We've got Pat Ferschweiler locked in until 2030. We're resourcing the hockey program in a completely new way, with the goal of winning a national championship. And we're going to move into the best facility in the country. And everybody knows it's the best facility in the country. This is our moment. We won't look back with any regret. Right. It's exciting, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, and they're in a good spot. If you look at the history of teams that have won the Penrose or gone on to win the Frozen Faceoff, the only team to do it in the same season was North Dakota in that wonky COVID season. But there's a good probability that a team that does that makes it far in the NCAA tournament, and Western's positioned themselves to be one of those teams. And they're a team from top to bottom. It's not a lot of, I don't want to say this just demeaningly, but there's not a lot of big star names here like there have been in years past. But the team has made themselves stars. I mean, guys like Zach Nearing came in a freshman year and have absolutely showed up and shown out the last couple of games. Ty Henricks has come on really strong at the end of the season. Hampton has taken over the net and shown that he could be a number one goalie for at least another year, if not two, if he decides to stay. His brother Grant came in. I think a lot of people were overshadowing him with Hampton, and he's shown that, hey, he's a player all of his own, and he's got skills that Western is making the most out of. So they're a full team from top to bottom and winning team hockey games, and it's been so much fun to watch. And the defensive core from guys that have come in like Kramer and Drasner, who we had on a couple weeks ago, and then the younger guys like Krusberg, Rosine, who have turned up their game and stepped up. When the D-core was a complete turnover, I mean, the whole team was a complete turnover from a year ago, and for the job that First did to bring that team together and only lose one game in regulation in conference play is ridiculous.
Ridiculous. But you know what? That's Pat Ferschweiler. Like, I don't ever count that dude out. And to your point, when I looked at the roster this year, I thought, like, man, there's a true freshman on every line.
Yeah.
And you know what? These freshmen aren't playing like freshmen, right? So let's start there. And then, to your earlier point, he's worked the transfer portal like a magician, right? He's getting guys that maybe the North Dakotas and the Denvers maybe didn't value the same as we do. And they come here with a chip on their shoulder. That's already who we are. We're already a blue collar program that's going to punch above its weight. And so he's been able to sort of marry that culture with these guys who are looking for a different chance. And he's turning them into all league players, and he's doing it every year.
Yeah.
I think we really thought, I'm not going to speak for Pat. I think Pat would have always told you we were going to win a championship this year. I think with the talent we had coming in, I think next year was sort of this team is going to be really good. But these freshmen came in, and to your point, like, they didn't play like freshmen, and they're not playing like freshmen right now. And when you have a team that believes and they're all fighting together, you don't necessarily need the superstars, even though we've got Alex Bump, who's certainly playing like one. We've got a real great opportunity to do something special, but not just this year, build on it and continue to do a lot of special things at Western.
Yeah, and I mean
I
it's
just get disappointed. I'm sorry. Alex Bump. I believe he was Mr. Hockey. And
He's
now there
ridiculous.
was a Mr. Hockey finalist
Yeah.
coming from Minnesota that I was watching. I think it was from Rogers that he's committed. I'm like, why you guys gotta be stealing all our good players going over to Western? Like, come on. Like,
Yeah. Well, we were happy to have him. We were happy to take him. And he's again, just a guy, works his tail off, special talent, of course. Fits in really well with Pat and in this culture. And hey, listen, I hope he's wearing a Bronco uniform for a really long time. But I think he's shown that he can play in the NHL. If not right now, then really, really soon. And that's why you come to Western, right? You come to Western to play with the best, compete at the highest level, but give yourself an opportunity to move on and do it at the highest level in the pros. And Alex certainly is putting himself in a position to do that.
Yeah, I mean, recent history would show that it's not just defensemen anymore. Like there was a long line where it was a lot of defensemen coming out of Western Michigan. But this year, Ethan Frank has got called up and played really well in Washington. Sam Colangelo is killing it right now with the Ducks after getting called back up and only having spent a year here. Jason Poland has been up and down, but has been really successful with the Avalanche. Unfortunately, it's with the Avalanche, but it is what it is. But no, those guys. I mean, there's something that this coaching staff has figured out how to get the best out of their guys and either build their careers if they're here the whole time or reignite a career like they did with Sam last year. And Alex has been a lot more consistent player this year than he was last year. I think a lot of people would say that. And even if he's not scoring goals, like that kid just takes over a game. And if he were to just complete half as many passes as he's attempted, he would lead the league in assists, and it wouldn't be even close.
We talk about that a lot. I mean, it's a fast game, and that those guys were all kind of, learning and feeling each other out at the start of the season. But yeah, man, if a stick gets on a few more of those passes, holy cow, he's probably setting an assist record. He's a very, very special talent.
And then I don't want to take up too much of your time. Like I said, you are a busy guy. You got a couple tournaments. You're not at home. You're not relaxing. So there's been some transition in the football side of the MAC, and I'm wondering if that allows opportunities to schedule kind of different opponents across sports. You have Northern Illinois leaving in the MAC soon, or leaving the MAC after this coming fall. UMass is coming in. UMass has a big hockey team. I think it'd be fun for them to match up with the Lawson, the Western Michigan Broncos, whether at UMass or here at Lawson, before we move downtown and let them see the Lunatics and what they bring. Does that stuff kind of happen? Like, you play them in a different sport, it opens the door to potential talks for other teams to play each other?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at UMass. UMass is going to come in all of their sports. They're going to come into the MAC in all of their sports. And so now all of a sudden you're establishing new rivalries, and certainly UMass has a great historic hockey program, and we'd love to play them, and that certainly opens the door to that. You want to continue to balance a really exciting non-conference, right? We want to be bringing in a big name opponent. We want to get, it's important to get out on the road and play those games. We all know how the pairwise works. We want to play those big time road games. And then we know we've got a gauntlet of a schedule once we get into the NCHC. What we want to start doing are things that are going to be fun and innovative for the fan. We've started talking about, do we do an outdoor series at Waldo Stadium, right, before we get into the arena, and who would play us? How do we, maintain those rivalries with the Big Ten programs? I mean, the fact of the matter is, the numbers don't lie. They draw better than anybody else, right? Our fans, that Michigan State, Notre Dame, it really resonates with our fans, and they show up in droves. So we're always going to look to schedule in an innovative manner. On the football side of things, losing NIU, listen, every school is going to do what's best for them. There's no love lost with NIU. Their AD is a good friend of mine. I think you have to look at the numbers and look at what's best for you. Frankly, as I looked at it, that wouldn't have been the right move for Western Michigan University. But as we schedule in football, really, my goal is getting us to 6 home games. Right, I got here all of a sudden it was like we had 5 home games every year. That's tough, frankly. Hard to get your home fans excited about football when you've got just so much space in between your games. So really excited this year was able to get back to 6 home games. I think we have a nice competitive schedule. And then in 26, the days, frankly, of being able to get Michigan State to come to Waldo Stadium, Michigan, I mean, those days, I hate to say they're over. Those days are over. I mean, it's just, they're not going to come and play us on the road anymore. So how do we continue to get exciting names outside of the Power 4 opponents? And obviously we were able to lock in Boise State. And so they'll be coming in 26. That's a big time opponent. We're excited about that. And right now it's looking like we'll be 6 home games at least through 2028. And my goal is to stay 6 home games as much as possible. So, it's about, you want to be competitive, right? You want to put yourself in a position to qualify for the postseason, however that looks in a sport. But for me, it's really important that the fans have a good time and have a great experience. And so, we recognize that bringing the right people into Kalamazoo is a part of that.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
Hey, you got a former football coach here in Minnesota. You can work with, try and get us to go over there.
I don't. Maybe you'll call PJ and see if he'll come play us at Waldo. I don't know. But we'd love to have him in Kalamazoo anytime, any day of the week.
he's an interesting guy.
He's a
But
great coach. I'm a big PJ Fleck fan.
I was for sure. I'm a little hurt the way he left, but it's okay. He's doing all right where he's at, and we're doing okay. But where was I gonna go? I forgot now. Might give another question while I remember what I was gonna say.
So,
I got distracted.
I forgot it. I forgot the one that I had as I was thinking about it.
No. So Hockey East is a big. There, outside of the NCHC, it's like Hockey East, maybe Big Ten, and the NCHC are the top 3. And this kind of goes along with the UMass point. We don't get to really see a lot of teams out east. The last few years we've had a series with Alaska to get them back going as they rebuilt their team. We played Lindenwood 4 times last year to kind of get them built back up. A team like Omaha, you see they've played some east teams in Long Island and a couple of the other schools, but I think a lot of people just miss out on those. And we only had 1 game with BC this year. And that was one that I think a lot of people were watching just to see that it was BC, a team that everyone expects to be in the tournament. It was a measuring stick game to see where Western was at, and they competed well. Kind of fell apart down the stretch, but they built on that loss and built into what they are today. So not a bad experience, but to get something like those teams to come out here, or even to get a full series with those teams, I think would be something the fans would be interested in, and even getting Notre Dame back in the mix. I don't think we've played them for a few years, and that's only like an hour 15 away. So not a far trip to get a bunch of lunatics or community members to make the drive down to South Bend too.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I'll take both of those in order. So for the East Coast teams, yeah, I mean we're obviously going out there, and we had, I think, Northeastern that was 2 years ago, if not last year. BC obviously this year. The East, God bless the East in hockey, right? They got their own thing, and they're doing their thing there out east. We'd love to have them come to Kalamazoo and play us, and obviously we'll continue to look for those opportunities. Notre Dame, I think you'll see a steady dose of Notre Dame here coming up real soon. To your point, they're just 45 minutes away. And as I said, we'll continue to prioritize those Big Ten schools. But Pat hasn't shied away from big non-conference games, right? He's very smart the way he schedules. Like those 4 games against Lindenwood, arguably that's what got us into the tournament, right? You gotta get some wins in the non-conference, but to your point, you have to sort of balance getting some big opponents to come see at home, but then getting out on the road and taking on those opponents as well. So yeah, we want people to have a great time at Lawson Arena, and then obviously the new arena downtown, and we recognize that the opponent matters.
I think you guys owe Notre Dame a thank you, potentially also for knocking off the Gophers.
I know.
Which I'm happy about. I'm not upset about it, but with the pairwise rankings they were just talking about on the radio yesterday, they were like, we need Western Michigan to lose because being in the Twin Cities, it's Gopher territory for hockey. They're like, Yeah, we need Western to lose, and then the Gophers can keep that 1 seed in the tournament. So keep going, and please get them out of a 1 seed, because I just love to watch them suffer in hockey only, but I love to watch them suffer in hockey.
Well, we'll control. I'll sound like a coach here. We can control, and that's winning right now. But give that group credit, right? You have a really emotional series against North Dakota. A big win to clinch the Penrose. A couple of tough breaks in that second game. Unfortunately, you drop one in overtime. But then you got to get refocused. You got confetti everywhere and a little bit of a hangover, maybe even going into the Miami series. And listen, like throw the record out. Miami usually beats us once a year. That's a quality opponent, and they were locked in for senior day, and they've got really good players, right? And our guys, they were focused in. We didn't skip a beat. We went there. We took care of business. We stayed healthy. That's what you want heading into the postseason. So our goal is to win, and our feeling is, yeah, we keep winning. Hopefully we get that 1 seed, but the one thing we can control is keep getting those W's. We want another champ. We want to get another trophy. We want to pop a few more confetti cannons at Lawson Arena. So let's go.
Yeah, I got a pile of the confetti sitting over my shoulder.
I saw people collecting it. I love that. And listen, guys, like that's it. I mean, let's go back to the start of this conversation, right? Vision, belief, culture, like that's not accidental, right? That our first year, we spent a lot of time having conversations about what will it look like when we win championships? What do we want it to look like, right? And so we've got a whole script, whether you win it on the road or you win it at home. And part of that script is we wanted gold confetti. And the thing that was really cool about it for Lawson was, we handed those confetti cannons out to the Lawson Lunatics. I had a few people on my staff who thought I was nuts. I'm like, we're giving those things to Lawson Lunatics. You're going to have to time it because I can't have them screw it up, right? And it's going to be tough. But think about it. Like if you were a Lawson Lunatic and you got to, you shot off one of those confetti cannons, you're going to remember that for the rest of your life, right? Like you're going to remember that moment for the rest of your life. You're going to love Western Michigan for the rest of your life because you got to experience that moment. So that's why, like, that stuff matters, man. And it was, I can't think of a group that I'd rather celebrate with than the Lawson Lunatics. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, honestly,
and you get me fired up.
Let's go.
I'm like, why is this not in Duluth? Like, I mean, I love it. It used to be a better environment, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. I think they got rid of the upper deck student section, and the student section just isn't what it was when I was kind of sneaking in, using other IDs or whatever, just to go sit in the student section. That was so much fun. And we're winning those championships, but you go to a game, you're kind of like, okay, where's half the student section? Where are they? They're not there. But then you get all the alumni. That's why I'm disappointed it's going away from the X, because you get kind of a home ice advantage if you were St. Cloud or Duluth.
Yeah.
That we'd be able to go there and watch the team, and the majority of us live in the Twin Cities, so that was more of the championship feel than if they were to win the Penrose up in Duluth. So you're getting me fired up with how you're talking about this and creating those memories and trying to really engage the fans and working with the Lunatics in that student section, which I'm not as involved in it or anything, but I don't quite see that happening in Duluth.
Yeah, well, I can't speak for them, but I will tell you this: when we move to home hosting, we're gonna host, and you can come. I will get you a whiteout Lawson Lunatics shirt. You can come hang out in line. We'll save a spot for you with the Lunatics.
I've been chipping away at him for a few years. I got him in a Bronco jersey when we were down in Nashville. So
yeah, there you go. All right, keep working at it.
So I think we're getting closer. But no, that's the one thing that I think sets the Western hockey team apart from any team in the country, is just how much you guys bring up, mention, talk about the Lunatics, the community as a whole. But every team says we have the best fans, but you guys go a step further. You don't just say fans. Like, you make the Lunatics a part of the game day atmosphere. They're announced at every home game by the PA announcer. They were clearly a part of the celebration for the Penrose, more so than I think any other team does. The way you guys talk about how you're situating them and thinking about them driving the design of the new arena. Like, it's just above and beyond, I think, what you hear even pro teams talk about their fan bases when it covers an entire state. And this is a spot where people choose to be here for 4 to 6 years in some certain circumstances, maybe longer, maybe less, just depending on how programs go and change. And sometimes they stay in the area and raise their own kids and make them little Bronco fans, as we might be doing here. But it's I don't know that I can express how much it actually means as someone who, one, didn't even know Western had a hockey team before they got to campus, but has made it such a big part of their Kalamazoo experience to know that it's not misplaced or looked over, and that it's celebrated to such a degree that Western celebrates their student section and their fan bases. I don't know that enough fans get to say thank you for that. So I want to say thank you from my own and hopefully on behalf of some of the other community members in the Lesson Lunatics, both past, present, and future.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and that's obviously a team effort, but we appreciate when you notice things like that, because a lot of work goes into that. Credit to Elaine Russell, who oversees our external. Again, I go, the confetti, the announcing the Lunatics is part of the lineups now. Like, it's all intentional, and one of the things that she did that was brilliant is she helped them become a registered student organization on campus, just like any club. Right now, there's a Lawson Lunatics club. And not only did that get them some funding mechanisms to help them with the things like the shirts and the planned promos and things like that, but she kind of helps serve as an advisor so that we're working together to make the experience better every single game. And that's obviously going to serve us as we move into the new facility, but we know the fans feed off of it, right? I mean, not everybody loves every word that comes out of the Lost Lunatics section, but I'm willing to take on that battle. I'm willing to take on that battle because they're special and they make a huge difference. And we want everybody to have fun at the arena, and we know that when the students have fun, our fans have fun.
Yeah, some of them even look like big dumb doofuses with their entire face painted and carrying championship belts around. So
I listen, man. You were one of the first people I noticed in Lawson Arena. I'm like, this place is awesome. Look at this.
No, I definitely have enjoyed my time at Lawson and don't see it coming to an end even when it moves to the new arena. So
yeah, no, we'll save you a seat there behind the goal we shot twice.
I did like Wes when he sent a message to myself and one of our buddies. Is this a dumb question? Should I bring my WWE belt? I was like, yes, it's a dumb question. It obviously you need
to. Of course you should. It's dumb that you would ask. Yeah. Heck yeah, man.
Yeah, no, I got a picture with that in the Penrose that Friday before the game. So
I saw that on social media. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So we just need them to get one of the Western stylized belts that they've been doing for some of the other universities after they moved on from the pro leagues. But no, that's what I'm looking for. That's the next thing I'm going to save up for after season tickets next year.
Noted. I love it.
But yeah, no, I think we'll let you go there. It's a little bit shorter of an episode, but like I said, you're a busy guy. You got 3 conference tournaments to figure out how to watch and enjoy. Luckily, 2 of them are in the same area down there in Cleveland, Ohio.
Great. Yeah, it's great. It's a great tournament. The MAC basketball tournament. They're the only conference that does this where they play the men's and the women's at the same time, in the same venue, which does, especially when both your teams make it. It really it's really fun. And we came down here to win. And it's always a good problem to have when you're not sure which postseason event you should be at. And so let's hope that happens this weekend.
Yeah, let's put a couple more teams into that, some NCAA tournaments. We haven't had enough yet.
Let's go.
So I think with that one, Pucks on Net, good things happen like goal horns and fight songs. Thank you once again to spending some time with us. Until the next episode, we're out of here. Thanks,
guys. Go Broncos.